Hi, I'm Dr. Lenora Coleman. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. Today we're going to be talking about coping with triggers, and this is one of the many modules that are part of the Prevent T2 Diabetes Prevention Program. So this session is going to be talking about how you're going to cope with various triggers to help you prevent or delay your type 2 diabetes. So we're going to talk about unhealthy food shopping triggers and ways to cope with them, some unhealthy eating triggers and ways to cope with that, and then some triggers for sitting still and ways to cope with that. Because we need you moving and we need you eating healthy. So all of these sessions sort of build on one another and will help you be able to fit in and start to do a healthy lifestyle. Now, here's a couple of quick tips. Instead of buying treats for your loved ones, show them your love in healthy ways. If you snack when you watch television, avoid eating out of large containers. Get some small containers so you're eating more like a single serving. And if you always lie on the couch to watch TV after dinner, be active during the television commercials. Now let's think about that. If you're like me, you're probably DVRing a lot of your shows. So you're not getting in those commercials, or you're fast forwarding through the commercials. So on any given hour of television, try to not fast forward through all the commercials. Just fast forward through half of the commercials so that you can be up and active, or just get yourself an exercise bike or a treadmill, put it in the area where you're watching the television, and then you can use those pieces of exercise equipment while you're watching the television. So let's talk about Marta. This is Marta's story. Marta just learned that she was at risk of type 2 diabetes, so she needed to change her eating and her fitness habits. Now, her typical workday starts about 5:30 in the morning. As soon as she enters the kitchen, she starts making coffee. Just the smell helps to wake her up. Then she warms up a pastry to dunk it in the coffee. Later that evening, Marta needs to unwind after a stressful day, so she curls up on the couch and watches television. And during one of the commercial breaks, she actually gets up and grabs a bag of chips and a beer. Well, what are some of the things that Marta can do in her life that trigger her to act in unhealthy ways? Well, she is going to deal with these triggers. And these days, she's trying to get more sleep. You know, when you sleep, that is when you actually burn a lot of your calories. A lot of people think you burn calories during exercise, but that's not necessarily true. So, she's trying to get more sleep, and so she doesn't get so drowsy during the day. She's also getting up in the morning and in the afternoon and having some coffee, but instead of eating a pastry for breakfast, she's using plain non-fat yogurt with berries to substitute for that pastry. Martha stays away from the vending machines at work. Instead, she nibbles on baby carrots. Also, you can come up with various other sort of veggie snacks. And if you get you some low-fat calorie dressing, you can actually dip those veggies into that dressing. Martha still watches her television to unwind after a stressful day, but she is riding a stationary bike, or she lifts weights while she's actually watching it. And now she cuts up those veggies as her evening snack instead of having the chips and the beer. Now, she could have substituted popcorn for the chips, and that would have worked. So these are some of the things we're going to talk about. These are the triggers, and you need to learn how to cope with these triggers. So let's start with the first one. You're feeling hungry. Well, have a healthy snack before you go shopping, because you don't want to shop when you're hungry. Let's say you're feeling sad or anxious or stressful or mad. Well, put that shopping trip off until you're feeling better. You don't want to go to the grocery store when you're feeling upset, because what will happen is you'll end up buying those comfort foods that are there in the grocery store. And we don't want you buying those comfort foods. All right? Let's say it's on sale or I have a coupon for it. Okay? Well, find ways to save money by looking for the coupons for the healthy items instead of the more fattening items. And don't clip coupons for unhealthy items. You see something at that grocery store or at the bakery or at the mall or the coffee shop and it looks really tempting. Well, you got to stay away from the tempting parts of those stores. You got to stop going necessarily to that coffee shop, especially if they have their pastries and all of their muffins right there for you to see, because that's a way that you can be tempted to vary from your healthy eating plan. Buy a healthier version of whatever you're looking. Look at the nutrition facts. Even if you go to the bakery, oftentimes they have some low-fat items that you can purchase instead of the 400-calorie croissant that you want to buy. Always buy something that's on your shopping list and stick to it. So when you make your shopping list, you got to stay very close to what's on that list, because that ends up going into the recipes in your menu when you come back home. Remind yourself that you're trying to make better choices now, and reward yourself and congratulate yourself every time you make these wonderful milestones that you're starting to make. And then try a different farm. Maybe go to a farmer's market. Those are sometimes they have a lot of different things that you may not have at your regular retail grocery store. And if you think that you're buying things for your spouse or your kids, it's important to know that everybody in the family needs to be on this healthy meal plan. And so you need to let your family know that no longer are you going to be buying unhealthy items for them. You need to show your love in healthier ways. Okay, let's talk about some shopping triggers. Looking at these things, picking the grocery store that has a great food market is very important. Now, let's talk about eating triggers. It looks or it smells tempting. If it's at home, keep a supply of healthy items. So keep some cut up vegetables already in plastic bags or in bowls in your refrigerator. Don't keep the unhealthy items at home. Keep unhealthy items out of sight or make them hard to reach. At work, you want to avoid, again, using the vending machines, and keep healthy snacks maybe at your desk, or just bring your snacks with you when you come to work. I have happy memories of eating various things. A lot of us grew up in households where we had moms or dads that really were amazing cooks. And so because Thanksgiving and Christmas and birthdays and holidays, those were when the families used to get together, and they still are, and they're cooking and grilling and eating, and those are happy times. And so those foods actually become comfort foods or happy foods in your memory. So even though those foods maybe make you happy, you can still eat those foods, but you're going to have to change the way that you cook them or how much you eat of those foods that make you happy, so that you're able to, again, get down to that 5 to 7% reduction in body weight. So have a small serving of the food that you really, really like, or get a serving and then try and find somebody to maybe take a few bites to share it with you. That's a way to cut the calories down, and try to make some new memories and some new events that you're going to have either over your friends' homes or over your home or apartment, where you can get some new memories of healthy eating. And then a lot of people will say, well, I don't want to waste the food. Food is expensive. I can't be wasting it, so I'm not going to throw it away. So you got to learn how to cook in smaller amounts. That's very important, because what I found is a lot of the healthier foods don't do so well in the refrigerator over a couple of days. So most of what you try to fix in portions that you basically can eat up that day, and there's not necessarily a lot of leftovers left over. Now, there are some foods that work well. There are actually some foods that you can cook and freeze. So those are the kinds of things that you need to talk to our dietitians that we have on our program and your instructor that's there with you to help you sort of figure that out. And share these ideas with the folks in your group today, because I'm sure they have a lot of ideas that can maybe help you. Sometimes if you cook too much, it's okay to give it away, right? I have a next door neighbor who I know doesn't cook. She's elderly, and so oftentimes if I cook too much, I'll take her over some of the food so that she doesn't have to cook that night. So it's okay to give it away. Just remind yourself that your health is more important than that few bites of food that you're worried about not throwing away. There are certain eating triggers. So I always get this at the drive-through after work. So take another route so that you're not having to pass by that drive-through. Now let's talk about eating triggers. You need to figure out ways to cope with eating triggers. So let's say you tell yourself, I always get this particular thing that you love to eat through the drive-through after work. Well, maybe you need to not go by that drive-through because that's a trigger. And you need to not tempt yourself. Don't eat in your car. That's also important. And order something, if you do go through a drive-through, that's healthy instead. And then maybe you see photos or videos of unhealthy food. Try not to look at those photos. Don't pick those photos or cookbooks that you know have a lot of unhealthy foods in them. Other triggers that are from sitting still, not getting enough activity. I'm tired. So get more sleep at night. Maybe you might even want to take a short nap if you're possible during the day so that you'll have more energy. I feel sad, stressed, or just anxious or mad. Try to figure out ways to cope with your stress and your anxiety. That's very important as you're trying to be more healthy. My joints hurt. Well, find ways to be active that are easy on your body, such as swimming or yoga, because it's important, as we talked about in some of our other episodes, it's important to get that 150 minutes of exercise in every week. Something you may feel is I always lie on the couch and watch TV after dinner. So we've already talked about the stationary bike or lifting weights during your television sessions, or being active during the commercials, or going for a walk after dinner instead of just going directly to sit on the couch. All of things are things that you can do. Now here's a worksheet that we want you to fill out. It's called My Triggers. Your triggers are things in your life that you tend to react to in a certain way without even thinking about it. They can be sights, smells, sounds, or feelings. They can also be people, places, activities, or certain situations. So you need to sort of write down on this worksheet, and we can do this during the class today, what triggers your unhealthy shopping habits. How will you cope with these triggers? What triggers your unhealthy eating habits? And then how are you going to cope with those triggers? And then what triggers you to sit still instead of being active? And then how will you cope with those triggers? So use this worksheet, please fill it out, and then we're going to discuss it with the class so that we can all share our ideas in order to be able to do a better job at coping with triggers. Now let's talk about some common triggers. Common unhealthy shopping triggers. When you go out to the movies, you always get this big, huge tub of popcorn to share. You get pizza maybe every Friday night with your family. I always stop off at the taco truck during my lunch break. I get cookies on hand for my grandkids when they come to visit. And sometimes when I feel down, I pick up that container of ice cream. All of these are unhealthy shopping triggers that you can try to avoid. Some common unhealthy eating triggers. I always have something sweet for dinner. My friends and I always had chicken wings, beer, and chips when we watched that big football game. After church, my woman groups goes out for coffee and donuts. All of these are eating triggers. Now, you can still do these things, but you again have to substitute some of the low-calorie snacks and foods that we've discussed. Common triggers for sitting still. My friends and I sit together in the cafeteria every day during lunch. I play video games after work. My family plays board games on Saturdays, and when dinner is over, it's time for television. So these are all some of the common triggers for shopping, eating, and sitting still. I want to thank you again so much for your attention today. We hope you enjoy learning how to cope with your triggers. For more information and our other modules to help you begin changing your lifestyle, go to hovhealth.com, or you can always call 800-788-0941. That's Healing Our Village at 788-0941. Thank you so much for your time.